Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. Welcome back to a Division 2 video. Today, second build of the U22. Took a little bit longer than I hoped, but this is a banger of a build. You can just shred through everything. And yes, the LMGs are viable again. It's been a minute that we could use an LMG that really outdid the other damages out there, but man, look at this combination of the LMG with the gear and all of the buffs that this whole setup got. It's going to be insane, as we got around 25 to 30% extra amplification damage on this build right now. Yes, you heard it right. And that's why, as you can see in the background, we can just shred through areas, shred through bosses, doesn't matter how many they are. We can almost one clip a whole entire area. And of course, we're running an LMG, we're running 150 bullets, so one clip in an area isn't that hard to do, but still, this build holds its own, does a lot of damage, and it's been a minute that I had so much fun with the LMG, and it's a special one. But without further ado, let's dive right into the build. Enough intro, enough gameplay. I hope you will enjoy. And to start off, of course, with our specialization, as usual, we are using the gunner specialization, of course, for that armor on kill, but we're also getting that extra magazine pouch for our LMGs, because we're running around with the Carnage, because we're creating Carnage with so much bullets. It is so great to have a total mag of 150 and just shred through rooms. Then, of course, what guns are we using? And the main gun will be the Carnage. You can make the build even more powerful in a pretty easy way, and that is in combination with the Garage next to that. But let's go over my first and main gun of the game, the Carnage. The Carnage is a named LMG. It is the named Negav. It comes with almost 126k total damage, an RPM of 750, a mag of 150, headshot damage of 85%, and an optimal range of 40 meters. And why is this Negav so good? Because it comes with perfect Sadist on there as the talent. With the Negav, aka of course the Carnage, being buffed in its base damage by almost 10k damage, we also received a buff of 10% amplified damage of perfect Sadist. This went from 25% to bleeding enemies to now in this update to 35% amplified damage to bleeding enemies. So next to that, the Carnage got a huge buff in his base damage. His talent got another buff as well, and it will not stop with this build. This build got buffed across the board, and it's so much fun to play around with. We chose to go for the 50 round pouch, as I already explained from our gunner specialization. We went for 10% crit chance with the underbarrel and with the muzzle, and we went for another optic that has been buffed for that 30% stability. This will help you out a ton to make sure that the gun fires stable, especially if you're opening up your weapon and you're shooting those full 150 bullets. It can bounce away for you, so I will definitely recommend going for stability. This also got buffed. It was 25%, it's now 30%, and helps out a ton. Don't worry, you don't have to look through that scope. It's still normal. You're not scoped in with the weapon. It's just shooting your weapon as you're used to. And then, of course, to go back to it real quick, we went for critical hit chance on the attributes. A lot of y'all will probably go for damage to armor, but the critical hit chance will give us more damage in the long haul. So, of course, the LMG damage and the damage you target out of cover are already on an LMG, as those are the core attributes. Then jumping over to the Garage, and this could be helpful for you and helps you out a ton for your critical hit chances and critical hit damages. Why the Grudge? This is an SMG that does a decent amount of damage, 110k total damage, an RPM of 900, a mag of 52, headshot damage of 70%, and an optimal range of 21 meters. We went for damage to target out of cover, but why would you want to go for the Grudge? Because this comes with Perfect Vindictive. Killing an enemy with a status effect applied grants you and all your allies within 20 meters 21% crit chance and 21% crit damage for 20 seconds. And this comes in clutch with the rest of the build because we are going full into status effects. I'm running around with the foam launcher, I'm foaming people, I take somebody out with the Grudge, that 21% crit chance and 21% crit damage kicks in, and I switch back over to the Carnage. It is not needed, but this combination with the Grudge and the Carnage will do the most damage for you. You don't have to, you can also only use the Carnage, what you saw me doing the most in the gameplay before, but to get the most damage out, you could go for the Grudge and then go for the Carnage, or even go for a pistol and then go for the busy little bee, but then we're stacking a lot. And what the great thing about this build and the Carnage is that this damage is so incredibly free. We are not building up everything. We have to start one thing and it just keeps going. You don't have to stack and you can just shred through everybody. So what are we talking about? I will not let you in suspense anymore. We are using an OD build. Yes, OD got also buffed within this update, as OD got an extra 15% amplification buff on the chest piece, and that's what we're running. So if we're looking over our weapon and our OD, we're getting a 25% amplification buff versus TU21, and that's why this is such a great build, shredding through everybody, taking everybody out. Talking about OD, let's start with it. Why OD? Ongoing directive is for the status effect. The reload speed is very, very nice, especially because we're running around with a big boy as the Carnage, and then we're doing it for the 4 pieces. Rules of engagement. Shooting a status affected enemy will apply a mark. Killing a marked enemy grants you a full clip of hollow point ammo for your active weapon and half a clip of the agent's active weapon to the rest of the party, and the mark lasts for 10 seconds. So that means that if I'm running in, I'm foaming somebody, I'm taking somebody out, that means that ongoing directive kicks in and will give us those hollow point ammo. That hollow point ammo will amplify our damage by 20% and applies bleed on hit. Bleed on hit, of course, our Carnage kicks in, another extra 35% amplification damage, but because we're running the chest piece, this 20% goes all the way up to 50% amplification damage. And this is why we're using OD, and you will probably see me using OD on a couple more builds, because this is just godly. 50% amplification damage, and this got raised by 15% versus the last update, and that's why this whole combination is so incredible to play with, and like I said, it's just free damage. Then we went, of course, into all of the crit chances and crit damages. All of the ongoing directive is rolled with crit damage on there. All the 4 pieces. And then, of course, you want to go for the gloves, for the knee pads, for the holster, and then, of course, for that chest piece. For the backpack, I chose to go for Gruppo to raise our critical hit damage by 13%. This is the only piece in the build that got nerfed, because we lost that 2% critical hit damage and 2% headshot damage on the Gruppo brand set bonuses. We're only utilizing the first brand set bonus, so versus the last update we lost 2% crit damage, but with all that extra amplification damage kicking in, you're not missing it at all. Again, I went for crit chance and crit damages on there. Crit damage crit chance mod to be chosen, and then of course I went for vigilance, increasing total weapon damage by 25%, taking damage disables this buff for 4 seconds to give us even more damage output. And to get in between real quick, this is recorded after me recording everything. We can also, of course, go for Wicked. Wicked will give you an 18% damage to status affected enemies. We are, of course, using the bleed and, of course, using our foam launcher, so we have a lot of status effects all the time, so Wicked will be active all the time as well. It is 7% lower in its weapon damage than Vigilance, but if you feel like you're getting hit too much, you're not having Vigilance active all the time, or most of the time, then go for Wicked. It will be lower in its damage, but it will always be available. But let's go back to the video. And then for the last piece, it's gonna be the mask. And that's of course the Coyote's mask. Again, everything to crit damage mod on there. And then we doing it for pack instincts. Because 9 of the 10 times we're shooting between that 15 and 25 meters, we will always gain that 10% critical hit damage and or 10% critical hit chance. Usually we don't really hit somebody further than 25 meters. It happens, and then that critical hit chance is nice, but mainly we're doing it for that middle one between 15 and 25 meters to give us a little bit more damage output, and of course also making sure that we hit our crits. And then jumping over to the skills, I'm using a Revive Hive. I always like to use a Revive Hive. Gives you an extra life, of course, and then next to that, it's all up to you what to choose for your secondary, but make sure that it is status effect related. This is how you start up the build. What I personally do is run in with my foam launcher, I shoot that foam launcher on the ground, I take out my Negav, or I take out, of course, my Grudge, take him out, then of course OD kicks in, I will get those bleed bullets, and then the build doesn't stop proccing because you keep taking out people with bleed bullets, so you keep proccing your own Negav, you keep proccing your Carnage with those extra hollow point damage ammo. So again, you can choose whatever you like. I like to foam them down, but my friend that I got this build from, because this build we made live on stream, I always ask the community members to share builds with me, let me test it out. If I like it, I might make a build video about it, and this is one of those builds. So a huge shout out to you, Mur. Thank you very much for giving this build. I'm having so much fun, and OD will probably show up a lot more in the build videos because you can utilize this with every single freaking gun. But we digress. What I wanted to talk about is that Mur is using his EMP sticky. He likes that EMP sticky, helps out a ton versus, of course, those annoying dogs and wallies. And it also is a status effect because you disrupt people. If you take then somebody out, those bleed bullets will kick in as well. It's all about the status effects, and that's why for your second skill, you want to choose something that you can apply a status effect to that takes enough time to take them out. You of course can throw around with the grenades as well, but the range isn't really that great, so 9 out of 10 times you just jump out of that puddle. It's a lot easier to just dedicate one of your skills to status effects. That's pretty much the whole overview of the build. Let's go over the stats real quick. It's only the red stats. We are having 47.5% crit chance. Why did we went for this? Because of course our mask and or even our Grudge will kick in, and we will hit close to that 60%, or even overcapping with the Grudge to that 60% crit chance. We have 154% crit damage and then 85% headshot damage, and that's pretty much everything from the stats. Not that important, but just make sure that you check your crit chance. If you're not using the Grudge, I will not dive underneath that 47.5%. If you don't mind using that Grudge, often by switching over and then taking out those status affected enemies to get that extra 21% crit chance, I wouldn't go underneath that 40%. Of course, we have our mask as well that will give us another 10 or even 25% crit chance, but still I will not go underneath 40, that's the lowest I will probably go ever with a build. And of course, if we want to go into our modifiers, we only need to activate it. For now, I'm not running an active modifier because I'm still looking for that all out. Not really a big fan of primetime and or reversal, so I'm just waiting on all out at the moment. I'm almost there and I will probably use that as my active modifier. And next to that, I chose to go for 2 medium ones and 1 multi one. I went for pressure piston that will give us some extra stability, of course, within that medium range. I went for retribution that will give us some extra crit chances within the medium range, will help out a ton as well. And then for the last one, I went for the multi one, and that is bait and switch. And this will give us an extra hazard protection for people that are in short and medium range. And it will help you out a ton, especially against those shock and fire bullets. And that's pretty much everything about the modifiers. I know a lot of y'all don't really like it, but I still want to showcase what I use on this build itself. Let me know in the comments down below if you use your modifiers, and if so, which one are you using and you feel like it comes in clutch on this LMG build, for example. Would love to hear your opinion. That's gonna be it for me today. Thank you very much for sticking until the end. A little longer video, but I wanted to explain this incredible build that got buffed all the way up to the moon. The only thing that we lost was a 2% crit damage, but we gained that extra 25% amplification damage, and we're gaining an extra 10k on the base weapon damage as well. This shreds so many people, and it is a lot of fun to play around with. You don't have to wait on your damage to show up. Let me know in the comments down below what you like about this build. Are you using the Carnage as well? And let me give you another tip. It is for sale this week in the Countdown vendor. Pick it up right now. It's even with critical hit chance on there, so definitely pick it up. If you don't have the time to build this build yet, make sure to buy the weapon. You already have it, and that's the last tip for me. Again, let me know in the comments down below what you think about this build. What would you change around this build? I was thinking about adding the memento instead of the mask, maybe in a future build, but for now, I'm loving this build and I would love to hear your opinion. Thank you very much for sticking until the end. Like the video if you liked the video or helped you out in any way or form. And of course, if you're new here and or you want to be updated by the Division 2, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And I will see you in the next one. Pure Prime out.